Okay, this video is going to be for synthesis and decomposition because they're fairly simple and they are the opposites of each other. So, synthesis. Two elements or two simple compounds will chemically combine to make a new, more complex compound. So it means that there's more atoms in the new compound. So, hydrogen gas plus oxygen gas to make water. I'm not going to put the subscripts just to keep it simple. Is an example of two elements coming together to make a compound. You could also have sodium plus chlorine coming together to make sodium chloride. Now you have to pay attention to writing formulas when you write your new compound. Cl2 is a diatomic element, so when you write it in the element form, there's two atoms. But when it's in the compound here, it's a -1 ion. Sodium's +1, so there's only one chlorine in the compound, and we fix that by balancing. So two elements come together to make a compound. You can also have two nonmetals joining together. Sulfur can occur in different allotropes or different forms. One of them is the S8 form. So there's 8 sulfur atoms. So they will come together in a combustion reaction with oxygen gas to form sulfur dioxide. You would have to balance. Magnesium oxide. That's a solid plus water would make magnesium hydroxide. So here we have a case of two simple compounds coming together to make a more complex compound. So look at how many reactants there are for these examples that I've just given you. There's 2 reactants in one product. And that's not always the case, but that's a majority of the cases. An example where that's not the case is carbon dioxide coming together with water to form glucose. And oxygen is also produced. This process occurs in plants. This is called photosynthesis because it uses light to happen. So carbon dioxide plus water makes a more complex compound, sugar, that plants need for energy. And it just so happens it also releases oxygen to our benefit, so life can exist on planet Earth. So this is called photosynthesis. So in this case, you have a more complex compound plus something else being made. But you still have 2 reactants. So keep an eye out for these. Okay, so decomposition is the opposite of synthesis. A compound will break down into simpler compounds or elements, or an element and a compound. But energy is required for this to happen. So that is different from synthesis. Okay, for instance, if we take our water, in order to decompose water, into the two elements, hydrogen gas and oxygen gas, we need electricity. Usually, we place the energy that's used with the arrow because it's not actually a reactant or a product, it is a catalyst. It's how it happens. So it's with the energy that makes it happen. So we put it with the arrow. Hydrogen peroxide, H2O2 liquid, can decompose into water and oxygen. So this does require some heat. Heat we can represent with a triangle. Heat. Except there's enough heat at room temperature to make it go. It's just going to be very slow. If you want to speed it up, you can add another catalyst like yeast. Yeast will make it happen faster, or you can heat it up and it'll happen faster too. Hydrogen peroxide, for that reason, is kept in the fridge. Copper 2 sulfate pentahydrate. So this is a blue crystal. And it will form copper 2 sulfate and 5 molecules of water. So if you heat copper 2 sulfate pentahydrate, you will drive all the water that's coordinated to it off, and you will end up with just pure, we call anhydrous without water, pure copper 2 sulfate. It's still blue, but you'll be able to grind it down into a powder. Potassium chlorate. If you've ever seen on YouTube the gummy bear and potassium chlorate reaction, it's pretty cool. Potassium chlorate can decompose with some heat into an ionic compound and oxygen gas. And it's the oxygen gas that is the key factor that you need for your gummy bear explosion. So to balance this, we have an odd number of oxygens on this side and an even number on this side. So multiply your odd number by 2 to make it an even number. So now we have 6 oxygens on both sides. And there you go. Synthesis and decomposition. Synthesis makes a compound, a more complex compound, and decomposition breaks it down. Oh, so the opposite of photosynthesis is cellular respiration. Your cells do this constantly. They take oxygen that's delivered to the cells via your bloodstream and breaks that sugar down to give you energy, which it stores in ATP. A little bit of bio there for you. So this reverse of photosynthesis is cellular respiration, and all organisms, plants, do cellular respiration, but we don't all do photosynthesis.